But in fact, reducing the overall portion of the population that's made up of temporary residents could have a positive impact on housing pressures that we're seeing in communities as we continue to accommodate longer-term population growth through a sustained and well-planned permanent residency immigration strategy.
Respectfully, Minister, though, those numbers in international students didn't just pop up overnight. In fact, they increased quite substantially while you were minister, and your government didn't pursue any of those policies. I understand what you're saying, that it's not the same as permanent immigration, but now you have imposed caps, a policy lever that was available to you earlier. The Canadian press reported that your department, when you were minister, was warned about the very specific impact temporary immigration as well as permanent immigration could have on housing prices, and yet you chose at that juncture not to act. Is it political that you're deciding now to act, and why didn't you before?
Well, in fact, if you go back to some of the interviews that I would have given in the spring before the cabinet shuffle, I was talking very openly about the need to do the kinds of things that Minister Miller now has announced and put in place. If you look at some of the challenges that existed at the time, what we ended up seeing was multiple cohorts of students running into one another. At the same time, the colleges and universities were increasing international student enrollment far beyond what was projected to deal with revenue challenges that they were having coming out of the pandemic. We had, when the borders were closed, a couple of years where students weren't actually coming to Canada. When the borders opened back up and we saw multiple cohorts come to arrive at once, and the number of student study permits, rather, that institutions were requesting was growing rapidly, we had a huge number of people who arrived more or less at the same time.
Respectfully, Minister, you weren't powerless. Clearly now you've instituted policies that show you weren't.
And that's why we started down this path. So upon my appointment to the position, as the borders were first opening up, we started to see that there was an increase, but we didn't project it was as significant as what it ended up being with multiple cohorts running into each other.